Good morning and welcome to our REGENT Business School webinar on employability skills for the future of work. 4IR and the Black Swan event of COVID-19 have been a double disruption that has propelled us very quickly into the future of work, making the need for us to acquire 21st century skills even more critical. The World Economic Forum report of 2020 states that skills gaps continue to be high as in-demand skills across jobs change in the next 5 years. The top skills and skills groups which employers see as rising in prominence in the lead up to 2025 include skills groups such as critical thinking, analysis and problem solving, and skills in self-management as active learning, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. As the frontier between work tasks performed by humans and machines and algorithms shifts, we have a window of opportunity to upskill and to reskill individuals for the jobs of tomorrow. On average, companies estimate that around 40% of workers will require reskilling of 6 months or less, and 94% of business leaders report that they expect employees to immediately pick up new skills on the job. They are wanting in actual fact employees that are ready skilled. A sharp intake or uptake from 65% in 2018. I'm Inga Fisher, and I will be facilitating our discussion today. Before I dive into the topic and introduce our speakers, let me frame the segments of what we will discuss today. As employability and the future of work are extensive and very vast topics. We will be discussing, what does employability really mean? What is the definition of employability? And what does this really mean for businesses and for individuals? Employment is not employability, and employability isn't employment. What are the top skills required to be future fit in the workplace? And how do we start preparing our graduates to be future fit, employable? Please feel free to type your questions in the chat as we move through the discussion. And at the end, we will pick a few questions to answer and give you some key practical takeaways to take away from this session. Without further ado, let me introduce our speakers. Cindy Norcott is a motivational speaker, business coach, and CEO of the award-winning Pro Talent and Pro Appointments. Cindy is also the founder and chairperson of the well-known Robin Hood Foundation. Welcome, Cindy, and thank you for joining us today.
Howdy, Inga. It's wonderful to be here. And I must say, this is a topic that's really on my heart. As the owner of a recruitment agency, I find that, I see so many young people looking for jobs, and, they have this cry, this eternal cry, how it's so hard to find a job. And so many people are studying at institutions like your own, where they are hoping to leave the institution and then find a job. But I mean, you asked me to define what employability means. And from my side, it's really how you gain your first job in the marketplace. How do you keep it? And then how do you get a new or even better job from there? So it's basically finding work that's fulfilling, not just a lower level entry job that's beneath your qualifications, but something that's actually suitable to your aspirations as well. But I think employability is also about having a set of skills, a set of attributes that you can take, they're transferable. I think that's the big key word, is that no matter what you do, whether you have your own business, whether you have a job, or whether you're a volunteer, that these skills will go with you throughout your life. So it's about 3 different things, in my opinion. It's about your knowledge, which obviously they learn at the college, but it's your understanding, but it's also a lot of personal attributes and qualities that people bring to the party. So an employable person doesn't even necessarily have to have a job, but they've just got these different elements to them. That means that they can get a job, that they are employable, and that they are sought after in the marketplace. And then whatever they do, they can actually be flexible wherever they are. So from my point of view, I think it's so important, even when looking for a job, I think employability even starts there. So it's like, how do you cope in the recruitment process? When you're being interviewed, when you're being assessed. We were talking earlier, it's about even having the right CV, even understanding how to be interviewed and how to market yourself. But it's also, how do you succeed in your first few months of the job? When you're new, how do you learn? How do you onboard? How do you connect with other people? Your interpersonal skills, your communication skills, your motivation levels, and even your willingness to learn. And then how do you remain employable in the long term? Because some people start off really well and they're the 3-month specialists, and after 3 months, their true character comes out and they become lazy or difficult or moody. Hopefully nobody on this call. But we want people to have sustainable employment. And I think you need skills like self-awareness, the ability to develop and grow and change, the ability to be adaptable and to manage yourself. I think those are important things. But it's also really, really important that candidates are able to market themselves to an employer. So my thinking in terms of transferable skills is your brand is so important. And anybody, say somebody's just out of school and they started at college, basically how you were in school starts developing your brand. It could be how you are on social media. It could be your attendance at school. It could be your performance at school, your attitude. What kind of testimonial did you get from the school? And then at tech or college or varsity, it's your performance there. Were you always producing your work on time? Were you always, doing well? And, there's a golden thread through everybody. And I love that saying, you don't have a brand, but you are a brand. So I think those are all important elements that people need to understand when they're going, why can't I get a job? So for me, I think that social media, the branding, that your reputation is based on repeated acts of credibility. So for instance, if I were looking to hire a young graduate or a diplomat, I would be going to their college to say, who are the stars, and I'd be looking at their CV. I'd be looking at every point of contact with that person. How was their email to me? How was their telephone conversation with me? And I'd be looking at all aspects. But I think the one thing as well that I'm very, very passionate about, Inga, is that, it's not just about finding a job. So many young people have got so many skills, hobbies and interests. And I love the term a slashy, when I do this, slash this, slash this. And I think the future belongs to the slashies, people who maybe do 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs at one time. And my true heart for our future of our population, of our country, is in entrepreneurship. I'm always excited when somebody says, I've got an idea. There's something that I do that nobody else does. So for me, one of the things that if I could encourage people is to look at that ikigai concept. It's a term that's based from Korea, but they reckon if you've got these 4 things together, so say for instance, somebody's saying, well, I'm battling to find a job, or I'm in a job, it's not where I want to be, but I'd love to be an entrepreneur. There's 4 things that need to happen. The one is I'm really, really good at this thing. So to find work or to find a career or a job where you actually are incredibly good, talented, and skilled at that thing. That's the one thing. The second thing is about your passion. I love doing it. When I do it, the time flies. When I do it, I get excited. I would do this even if I weren't paid. How exciting is that? Then the third thing is the world needs this. I can provide a service or a product and the world needs it. And that's so important because sometimes people get caught up in getting excited about something that the world doesn't need. And then the fourth thing is the world is prepared to pay for this thing, this service or this product that I can provide the world. So I think that's super exciting. So if somebody's saying, why can't I get a job, or why am I've been completed my course 6 months ago or a year ago and I haven't found work, I think it's about, do I have all the little elements that make me employable? And for me, a few key qualities that people need to have. The one is adaptability and flexibility. I mean, I think everybody in this COVID year has had to adapt so much. And I think for young people, this should be something that should be a little bit easier than, say, for older people. But I love that saying about Tony Manning, the strategist. If the rate of change outside the organization is greater than the rate of change inside, you're doomed for extinction. So right now, organizations are having to change. So they're looking for people who are going to roll with the punches and be adaptable. Another thing that I think is so critical as an employable person, and it's something I look for, it's really the top of my list, is attitude. So how flexible are you? How humble are you? How willing are you? And you know, you can generally tell in an interview if somebody has a more positive or negative mindset. I don't want somebody who's a victim. Every employer was terrible. Every job was terrible. I want somebody who's saying, you know what, I love doing this, and I see the passion coming out of them. So attitude is so important, and being prepared to start at the bottom. So humility is another transferable skill or personality trait that I think that people need. Another one that's so important from my point of view is communication, because it's from the very start that you find a job is how you communicate. And you know, in an interview, people are judged in the first couple of seconds, and an interviewer will then actually decide, you know, okay, I like this candidate, they're great, or actually they're not. And then the interviewer will actually look for reasons to back up that first gut opinion on the person. So your ability to communicate both in writing and verbally. And I'll give you an example. I call it gangster speak. I sometimes have candidates sending me an email at the get-go. I'm applying for the job, and it's for, you know, no, you know, it's use proper sentences. Tell us why you want the role, and you know, make it positive, and that's your opportunity to sell yourself. So I think communication is not only important in the interview, but in the job as well. I know so many people who have done what we call CLMs, career limiting moves, by sending emails in anger, by not being able to communicate well, by you know, just really not understanding. So that ability to communicate positively and assertively and always professionally, I think is so important. And I love that saying, you make a speech in anger and it'll be the best speech you ever regret. So never send an email that's negative. You know, it's just those little things that some people, they've just never thought about those things. And then most of us have to work in teams, even if it's virtual. So that ability to be a team player, it means give and take. It means sometimes, you know, taking on a dirty job, or taking on a job that's not your job, and being prepared to do that. Sometimes somebody else might get the credit for your hard work. Sometimes it might mean doing work after hours for which you are not paid. And I think so many people are so clear on, I'm not going to be exploited, but to be employable, you've got to actually be prepared to be flexible in your principles as well. You know, I'm prepared to be humble. I'm prepared to come in on a Saturday when it's stock take. I'm prepared to stay a little bit later because I'm here for my customer. I'm here for my team. And then reliability. Wow, what a skill. You know, and it's doing something with the same sense of passion as you said you would do it. So it's about commitment. It's about punctuality. It's about attendance. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, it's my first job. It's a throwaway job. I don't mind if I'm not reliable or not punctual. I don't mind if I lose it. But how you handle a little job is how you handle a big job. So I think that's so important. There are so many skills. Right now, I think creativity, being a problem solver, and every business exists because they solve a problem. If you can't solve problems, then you might be redundant. So I think those are really important skills. Initiative, I love this one. You know, during the lockdown, many companies have retrenched their bottom 10%. And you know who sits in that space? A lot of people who never volunteer, the people who never speak up in meetings, the people who never sign their name on their work. And I love that saying, you know, don't stop until you are proud. And I think that's so important. So just a few things that I'd like to share. I think it's so important. You start your career when you're at school. So it's about your grades. It's about your extramural activities. You know, I know some schools do President's Awards, your volunteer activities. I'm very cautious of graduates who've never ever had a day of work in their lives. There's always time to do that. There's always time, even if you aren't paid. Look for opportunities to build your network, to build your skills, and to build your experience. I think that's so important. You know, and being positive, like getting a mentor or a coach, meeting with people who are in your industry, so that when you are being interviewed, why do you want to go into this career? You can say with confidence, I've met with somebody who loves this career, and they are my role model, and I'm a lot like them, and I'm excited, I'm passionate. It's so difficult when employers are looking at candidates and you say, why do you want to do this? It makes a lot of money. Or the first thing in an interview, when you say to a candidate, tell me, do you have any questions? Yes, how much leave do I get? Or what are the working hours? We want people who are passionate. We want people who want to grow in their careers. And we also want people who are prepared to take a small job and make it big by volunteering, by coming up with ideas, by being that person who's always prepared to go the extra mile. So in my opinion, what you study at tech, varsity, or college is one element, but there are so many elements where you can own that and where you can become an absolutely outstanding A player. And that's what companies want. They want the people who stand out in the top 10% amongst their peers. And, I think it's so important to make sure that you're not sabotaging yourself unintentionally along that journey through bad communication, through maybe not even realizing that you're not volunteering, through maybe having a shoddy CV, through poor communication. And then another thing is confidence. We need to, how do we build our confidence? We put ourselves into uncomfortable situations. So role play interviews, go and volunteer at a company, go and work somewhere, even if you aren't paid, because it'll make you a little bit more prepared. It'll make you stand out amongst your peers. And I think self-awareness is something as well I didn't touch on, but this is possibly the last point for now. I interview candidates so often and I go, tell me your strengths. And they'll look at me and they'll be like, I've no idea. Well, do you have a weakness? I remember so often interviewing candidates and they go, I don't have any weaknesses. And that's absolutely crazy. Everybody has weaknesses, but that awareness, I really want to be an accountant. And this is why I'm such a logical, analytical person. I'm a problem solver. I love statistics. I get so passionate about detail, and people can see, oh, okay, it's not just because my dad said, if I become an accountant, I'll always have a job, and I think we want to hire people who want work for the right reasons. So employability, yes, it's about the skills you are learning. Of course it is, because nobody would hire you with a great attitude and no skills, but they've got to be married together in a perfect pair. And it's about your knowledge, your attitude, your skills, your understanding, your characteristics, and what you bring to the table. So I'll leave it at that and hand back. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Some very good points you made in terms of these skills, which once acquired are easily transferable from one occupation to another. And I've often thought a degree or diploma at an institution can give you a head start in your career. But you'll be on the same playing field as several other people who have the same qualification or same piece of paper that you have. And to stand out in the crowd to catch an employer's attention, it's your employability, the unique mix of skills and competencies that is unique to you, that will make you future fit in today's job market. And then of particular interest to me, besides graduates or newly qualified graduates, are working adults who've acquired their diploma or their degree or their job or their certificate. And they find, despite having achieved this, they've plateaued in their organization and they can't move laterally, they can't move vertically. And they often come to me and I have these conversations with them and they can't understand, but I've completed my MBA, but it has not opened the doors for me. And then we have to unpack those very skills that you've discussed, the communication skills, not sending an email in anger, handling yourself well in a boardroom, presentation skills, meeting skills, things that we might take for granted.
Absolutely, Inga. And I think a lot of people who might be, let's just use a random age of 40, might be at 40 and they've gone, I've studied further, I've literally, my CV looks amazing. Often it's the unique little small things that are missing. It could be that volunteer mentality. It could also be political savvy, knowing how the organization works and what's expected of them and delivering. So for instance, some people, they haven't quite worked out what the leader or the decision makers in the company need. It might be they're not a good culture fit because they're not social enough or confident enough, or, you know, they're not energetic enough, you know. So it could almost be looking around you and going, what behavior do I want to model? Some people also have plateaued because they don't have a mentor, they don't have a coach. You know, they haven't actually sort of grown certain elements of these soft skills. So it's one thing to have an MBA, but the point is, how are you adding value? How are you being relevant in the workplace? So I might have an MBA, that's for me. That's not for the company. It's how I implement it and how I put it in and, you know, into practice, and how I use it to add value to the company. And, you know, and another thing, Inga, I often have candidates saying to me, Cindy, I need more money because these are my costs. And I always say, you're saying the wrong thing. I need more money because this is the extra value I've added to the organization in the last year. And these are my ideas for the next year. You know, a lot of people aren't paid for what their cost of living is, but they are paid for the value they give to the company. So I think a question an employee, a great employee, should ask every day is, how am I making myself indispensable? How am I adding huge value to the company? And if somebody's a manager, what am I doing today to solve the problems that keeps the owner awake at night? What am I doing to help people win? You know, often it's not just they're managing to get the financials out, they're managing to do whatever, but they actually are maybe a very negative person, or, you know, they maybe don't have a winning mindset. Maybe they're not creating a beautiful culture. And I think that's where self-awareness comes in, and an ability and a willingness to say, you know, I want to be better at this role, and I want to grow this role. And yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. It's not just the MBA that will take you there. It'll help you, but it will. You need to combine it with how's this playing out in the work every day, not just once. And consistency is possibly one of the most underrated qualities. So I might be great on Monday, and I'm like on my A game, applying my newfound people skills that I've learned and my leadership skills that I've learned in my MBA. But Tuesday I'm back to being morose, you know, that open door, closed face policy, you know. So yeah, I think it's so important to apply what we've learned. Yeah, I once interviewed a young grad who told me she had an honors degree, and she wanted to now be paid for all the hard work she'd done. And I said, that degree was for you. You should now be paid for the hard work you're about to do, you know. You know, and I think that's a different mindset that sometimes people don't get, and it scuppers their chances of massive success.
Absolutely, Cindy. There's a book I read recently called The Linchpin by Seth Godin, where he speaks about becoming a linchpin in a company. Exactly what you've said now. You become the linchpin by doing so many different things and learning and never saying no, that you skill yourself up in so many facets. And it talks to another book called Range. Why do generalists do well in a specialist world? Because you've acquired multiple skills. Thank you.
Thanks, Inga. And I think on that note, you know, nobody wants a one-trick pony. Every year as employees and as humans, we should be saying to ourselves, what am I learning this year to make myself more relevant, to make myself indispensable, to grow? You know, what is my theme for the year? How am I going to grow my personal development, my academic, my finances? You know, and that all works together. And I think you're absolutely right. Be the go-to person in the company. Be the person who knows 10% more than everybody else. And, you know, sooner or later, people will notice that, and you build a brand, and you build a reputation for being that person. Oh, go to so-and-so, she knows everything. Go to so-and-so, she knows everyone. And building relationships with people who aren't even in your silo, with another department, you know, with other managers, offer help, you know, do the things that nobody even knows you do. It'll come out in the end. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Welcome, Davi. Davi, you're on mute. Welcome,
Hi.
Davi.
Hello.
Hello, Davi is a seasoned human capital professional who is the head of leadership, learning, talent, and performance at Alexander Forbes. With over 25 years of experience in human capital, serving in South Africa and Africa. Welcome, Davi, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Inga. I'm extremely delighted. I think when I heard about the topic that Regent was about to run this webinar about, I immediately gravitated towards it because to the point that Cindy, my colleague, has just made, I think my experience over the past 25 years has certainly taught me that young people who are entering the world of work don't necessarily have the tools to succeed in the world of work. And so I'm hoping that my discussion that I'm going to share with you today is really going to leave you with some real nuggets, some nuggets that you will be able to take away, work with, play with, introspect, think about, and really make your own. So that's the intent of what I want to do today. I have got a presentation. I want to just quickly share my screen. Okay. Can you see the screen, Tamaine?
Can you see the screen?
Perfect. All right. So I think the big one really is to say that when it comes to employability, the big one is really, it's a terminology that we talk about where you have the ability to be employed. So having a CV that's great, having a degree that you've achieved, is just but the entry ticket into the match. You need to be able to show up in such a manner in the workplace that you are able to keep a job and you are able to hold a job. And I'll talk a little bit more as I work through the presentation. You've got to have the quality of being able to do something. So to the point that my colleague made around humility, if you are one that says, oh, but I'm not prepared to do the dirty nails work, you ain't going to succeed, because hard work really shows up in the types of roles that you take on, whatever comes your way. And I think the big one is really the world of work has shifted irrevocably. COVID-19 has made organizations such as ourselves rethink the world of work. And I think the biggest one about employability really now is about adaptability. It's about being able to shift yourself, move with the times, and be able to go with the flow. I always use the analogy of being like Mercury. Take the shape of the job that you are in. So you cannot have this notion of, well, this is the job I've got, this is my job title, and I am not able to do anything more. I think the other one that really holds people in good stead is really about your own natural inbuilt abilities. And this is about knowing yourself. So how good are you in terms of knowing what it is that you are naturally gifted and naturally talented in? And how do you work on that? Now, I'll give you a very practical example around this. So if you are somebody that can very quickly read a document and spot spelling errors and see that the layout of the document is not right, chances are that you have a very acute and heightened sense of attention to detail. Now, attention to detail is really about being able to dot the I's and cross the T's. And it's about being able to put out a great piece of work that you're proud about. And that is the type of talent that I'm talking about. If you are somebody that is able to very quickly, cast your mind into the future and you are able to project and see into the future, it's a gift. And you need to hone into that gift and look at how you can utilize it more back on the job. And my ultimate favorite is really this one about growth mindset. So Carol Dweck wrote the book, Mindset. And I think for those of us that have read the book, it really does circumvent a lot of the thinking that we've been schooled through, a lot of the ways in which we've been raised and how we've been brought up in terms of our belief systems. So if we have a belief system which says that, oh, well, I've arrived, I've got my degree, this world owes me, and, it's now or never, and I'm entitled to whatever it is that the world has to offer, well, then chances are you have got a fixed mindset. But if you have this growth mindset, which really talks about, well, this world is an oyster. I am here to offer what I can. I am here to give off what I can and make the most of my contribution. It doesn't matter in what job. I am going to learn, I am going to grow, and I'm going to show up, and I'm really going to offer all that I have been bestowed with. Then that is the growth mindset that we are looking at. And I want to just leave you on this topic with something that is very, very practical. So when we talk about growth mindset, there's a very practical tool that I'd like to leave you with. And we talk about the power of yet. So instead of saying that, oh, well, I am not as good as so-and-so, I'm not good at counting, I'm not good at mathematics, I'm not good as the person that is already employed in a corporate, then if you say things like, I am not as good as the person that is working in the corporate yet, you are allowing your mind to actually shift into the possibilities that you can grow. The rule of three, it's about looking back 6 months ago and looking at where was that skill that you were looking to grow, looking at where you are at currently and taking a stock take of that and saying, in the future, in 6 months' time, where will I be? Okay, so that is the rule of three. And then this is my ultimate favorite of the three rules, is really to say, if you have a mindset that talks about if-then plan. So in other words, if this happens, this is how I am going to respond. If COVID-19 comes in, by the way, none of us anticipated such. If COVID-19 comes in, then this is how I will show up. Then I will work remotely. So that's the type of thinking that I'm asking you to think about, and really to say that it's not just something that shows up in the world of work, but it's really about how you show up as you. It's a way of being. Okay, so in terms of the top skills to be future fit in the workplace, I think the big one is really to say that you have to have self-directed learning. Now, Inga talked about the top 10 skills that is required in terms of the future world of work that comes via the World Economic Forum. And I think what we refer to today is active learning. And I'm an ultimate fan of this team. And I'm a fan of it because this notion about I have arrived has really got to be unpacked. One has to have this mindset of, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to be curious, I want to be inquisitive, I want to be like a little kid who wants to have an inquiring mind. And that is about the self-directed learning. So I take ownership. I don't wait to be told. The thing about most of us is we get told that you need to study, you need to find a good job, you need to go in and work in a professional company, and you need to retire. Okay. Now, that's what we are told. But what are we doing in terms of unpacking that into the current world of work? And I can say to you that in organizations such as ourselves, the one thing that stands people apart is those people that have worked in the company and are constantly ensuring they have relevance of skill. They have a relevance of skill for where the organization is shifting. And that comes through me taking ownership. Yes, organizations provide a lot of training, a lot of external programs that one can attend, but it's really about what you do with what you are faced with. My colleague Cindy mentioned self-awareness, and I think I'm such a fan of this thing about emotional intelligence. And by the way, emotional intelligence is, I think, number 8 in terms of the top 10 skills that is required in the future world of work. And so for those young individuals like yourselves that are entering the world of work, I'd say to you that you really need to become self-aware. You need to know what your hot button areas are. You need to know how you react or respond when you are faced with some difficult situation. You need to know what your impact is on others. Self-regulation is about knowing when to stop yourself. So I'll give you a very good example around self-regulation. So you go to a party, you're having a grand time, you have one too many drinks, you are dancing on the tables, you are busy letting your hair down and having a good time. And then somebody takes a picture of this and posts it on YouTube or loads a video of you. And now we have Cindy looking at your profile. We are busy looking to place you into a role, and we come across this video. What do you think that tells us about you? Okay? Is that really how you want to be defined? So think very, very carefully. Self-regulation is really about knowing the brand that you want to put out. It's knowing when to control yourself and knowing that you are in control of your destiny in terms of how you show up. Motivation is really about the intrinsic motivation. So I study every day without my parents telling me that I need to study. I am intrinsically driven and motivated to do this. I come to work and I show up and I give off my best because I am intrinsically motivated, and I know that it is a means of me deriving self-fulfillment in the work that I'm doing. And empathy is really about being able to walk in the shoes of others, really, really having deep understanding for somebody who's probably not as fortunate as we are, probably not as privileged as you are, and really being able to understand and help that individual in that manner. And the ultimate favorite is really about this relationship management. You and I know it as social skills. It is about how we get along with others. And I can say to you, you can have the grandest degree. You can have an honors level, a master's level, even at a PhD level. You can have all of the qualifications. If you do not know how to get on with people, chances are you are not going to be a great success. Okay. The other big favorite of mine is really about resilience. So resilience is really about not something that you are born with. It is something that you develop over time. And how you develop your resilience over time is really how you handle setbacks and how you unravel those setbacks and you take learnings out of it, so that when you are confronted with the same or similar type of issue in the future, you are able to very, very quickly overcome it. And so we talk about it as the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from difficult life events. Okay? And age has got nothing to do with it, because you have very, very young people, graduates such as yourselves, who enter the world of work, who are hugely resilient. They take setback after setback in their stride. Jobs get changed. We go through operational restructures within the company. Jobs get become redundant, and they are able to very, very quickly bounce back, look for something else, and just carve out a new career. The one about agility is really about being agile in everything that you do. And agility is about learning. It's about how you implement. It's about how you take information and you work with it very, very quickly. It's about speed. It's about keeping a careful watch out there on the external environment and ensuring that the skills that you have to offer are actually relevant. And my ultimate favorite, the very, very prevalent, relevant one, is about remote working. And I just want to talk about remote working now. Okay? So most of us are not used to working remotely, and I speak for myself, because if anyone asked me 6 or 7 months ago whether I would be able to work permanently at home, I would probably have said, no, I miss my colleagues. I need to, I'm a kind of a person who needs to have interaction with people. And so COVID-19 changed all of that for us. Okay? We didn't have a choice. And so we all had to adapt, and we had to learn this new technology of MS Teams and of Zoom. And boy, oh boy, have we had fun. Okay? We have come through the times where people are talking and they don't unmute. Okay? Or we have noise backgrounds, noise interferences, and we don't understand what this is all about. Now, team, I have to say to you that people like ourselves who work in corporates, we've overcome these very, very quickly. So if you are somebody that is coming in for an interview and we are interviewing you, chances are you need to be as skilled as the people who are interviewing you remotely are. And so you would need to know where to find the unmute button. You would need to know that you have to have a backup, because load shedding is a constant in our country. We also have power failures. Okay, so what is your backup? Do you have UPS? Do you have something that you can seamlessly navigate to without now boring the interviewer and making them wait and your time is being eaten into? So these are just some of the small tips and techniques that we've learned along the way to say that I'm equipping you with it. I'm giving it to you as a gift to say, overcome that very, very quickly, because it is that is going to differentiate you. It's showing us on the spot as we are interviewing you how you quickly troubleshoot, that you are somebody that's resourceful, that you can solve for the inevitable. You are thinking of the unknown. That is what is displayed in the moment. And I say to you, every single interaction is being assessed. Okay, it's not only the questions that we are looking at. So that would be my little gift to you, to say, be well versed in technology. And so this is some of what I've come up with in recent months, having worked through this world of work. Now, if you are one of those people that do end up working remotely, I'd say to you the following. You need to be able to work remotely, and when you show up in meetings, because this is my life, right? Team, I spend probably about 90% of my day in back-to-back virtual meetings. You've got to be able to listen. And listening is not about looking at nonverbals, because in most instances, people don't switch on their camera, so you can't really see the nonverbals, okay? So you need to listen. You need to pick up what is the person saying in their voice. Is the person confident? Are they influencing me? Am I getting it? Am I learning? Are they really grabbing me with this? Okay, so this is what we talk about: listening intently with deep ears. And you've got to listen for the unspoken, the deliberate pauses, what is coming in between, what I'm talking about when I'm saying with deep ears. You need to observe with wide open eyes. Observing with wide open eyes is about looking for the hidden dynamics that comes with virtual discussions or virtual meetings. And it's really about being able to say, oh, so these are the dynamics. So-and-so is the most seasoned person in the meeting. Everyone's referring and deferring questions through to that individual. Okay, maybe I can learn something from that individual. Note to self, maybe I could approach that person to be my mentor. Okay, because the world of work where you are actually in a world of, in a working place where you can watch, look, and learn are no longer there. And so you can still learn remotely by just showing up and looking at things with different lenses. And then this other one is about enabling equality of time to speak so that others have space to engage as well. Okay. Now we all know about the people that once they get the mic, they just hog the stage and they just don't want to let it go. Well, that happens in virtual meetings as well, team. And so I'm asking you to be mindful that others also want to say something. And if you are one of those people that do say something of relevance, say something that's memorable. Don't just say something to hog the airtime and to well be heard. Say something that you're going to leave people with, okay, that's going to matter for the conversation at hand. And then the last one is about allowing your senses of imagination, intellect, mental integration, emotional presence, physical, sensory, and your empathetic skills to deepen. And this is, for me, the ultimate one. And it's really about deeply, deeply connecting. Now, we all know that the human mind tends not to focus too long on one particular topic. So how many of you have been in a call where you've grabbed your cell phone and you're quickly trying to respond to a WhatsApp or a message came in? No, guys, you cannot multitask. That I've learned. I'm a mom. And I always used to tell my children, I've got eyes at the back of my head, meaning wherever I am, I know what you're doing, okay? But I've learned with this virtual working that it is not possible. And so let me raise my hand and say to you that I cannot multitask and listen at the same time and really be able to answer the question as if I fully understood it. And I found myself doing this. I found myself saying, oh, I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question? Or I make a little excuse about, I'm sorry, I just couldn't find the unmute button. Absolutely not on. We know those little cues now. We know you weren't focusing. So please, team, I'm asking you to show up in the best manner by listening and focusing and being present in the meeting. And so, how do you prepare to be employable? So I guess the big one for me is really about holding up the mirror and being able to diagnose your own development requirements, and it needs to be in line with your own career aspirations. So having studied something, you also need to look at the soft skills, okay? So we say you develop the hard skills through your degree or your qualification, but the soft skills, in my opinion, are the hardest thing for you to learn. Okay, because we call it soft because it's warm, it's fuzzy. In the past, it wasn't necessarily a requirement. But I can assure you, in the world of work now, it's this that sets you apart. It is this where you are showing up, where you are hungering for more. You are looking and you are asking, putting up your hand and raising for more. And this thing about feedback, when people do give you feedback, how do you respond or react? Okay? Because if you act defensively, chances are you will shut down all further mechanisms of feedback that comes to you. But if you approach the feedback with, thank you for the gift, thank you for taking the time out to see something that I haven't seen before, it will really, really propel you into accelerating your. Back to the EQ component that I spoke about just now, it's really about heightening your own self-awareness. And so when it comes to the skills that are required, it is influencing. That refers to that. It's about communication, humility, and developing breadth. Let's talk a little bit about that now. So influencing is, yes, most of our young graduates today are influencers on Instagram. We know we have lots of followers on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and. But influencing is also about the choice of language, and it is about how you speak and how you take people along with you. Okay, so how is your language showing up? How are you actually influencing people through the dialogues that you are having? Okay, do you stop, pause, and allow others to engage with you, or are you somebody that just dominates and is having a monologue all on their own. So these are some of the things that I'd ask you to really seriously hone into. Communication and how you communicate. To what Cindy spoke about, it's in the written format. This notion of shorthand and, this speak that we grew up in schools with cannot come into even a WhatsApp or a SMS, because it is a tool of trade in our world. I'm part of the older generation teams. I do not understand some of those acronyms that you use, okay? So for people like myself, and chances are you're going to have a little bit more of an older person that you're going to report into in a work environment, is that speak in normal English. That would be the one thing I'd leave you with around that. And also be an influencer in terms of how you communicate. Never, as Cindy pointed out, react in anger. Take 10 seconds, walk away from your laptop, think about the matter, or sometimes even sleep over it and come back the next day, and you will have a totally different approach to how you respond to that. And this thing about humility, okay? I'm humble enough to know that there's others out there that probably have walked this path. For me to raise my hands and ask for help, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, okay? I'm humble enough to do the dirty nails jobs. I'm humble enough not to walk around with a badge on my forehead that says I have an MBA, okay? I display it in how I show up, in how I contribute, in how I bring value into the workplace. Then people ask, the greatest compliment you can ever receive is when people say, I wonder what qualification so-and-so has, okay? And then you say, but I don't really have a qualification. I've been schooled in the school of hard knocks, and that is life, okay? And that is what I'm talking about. When people are becoming inquiring, you suddenly have their attention, but you don't know why. Let it be for the right reasons. And this thing about developing depth and breadth of skill, okay? So depth is taking a unidimensional view and making sure that you are coming down in a vertical, okay? And you are understanding the topic at hand. So you develop depth over years on that topic. And breadth is about having a broad understanding of all different facets of that particular topic, okay? And you deepen in each one of those facets, okay? So that is what we talk about, depth and breadth. So you sometimes hear this speak in the world of work, and they say, okay, how deep are your skills when it comes to understanding entrepreneurship, as an example? And then the breadth of skill is really about across a wide array of skill sets, and not just having one skill. It's about having multiple skill sets that can be reused in the world of work, and using various channels to continuously learn, okay? We've got Google, we've got Google, we've got LinkedIn Learning, we've got free webinars galore all around us. We just have to Google anything we need to know, and you have dozens of things being thrown at you, okay? So be curious, be inquisitive. I heard a word once and I didn't know what it was. And somebody said to me, scoliosis. They've got a condition called scoliosis. And so when I Googled it, I couldn't believe that at my age, I didn't understand. I knew what it meant, but I had to leave you with that. You go and Google and learn something if you don't already know what scoliosis is. So I'd say to you, in terms of how you need to show up, the one thing I can leave you with around this particular element is to say to you that you need to have the curiosity to experiment with information. So right now you are going through some concrete learning, okay? So if I have to look at Cole's learning stages, he talks about you first experience something in its concrete form. The next step you would need to do is you need to walk away from this webinar and you need to do some reflective observation based on some of what you've heard. So deeply reflecting on this and asking yourself, what does it mean for me? What should I be doing differently? And then you work with this information in a new world. So you reimagine this in another situation. How would you make this your own? And that's what we talk about, abstract conceptualization. And then the active experimentation is when you actually display this back on the job. We don't even know that you've gone through that, but you took the information, you turned knowledge into a skill, and then you experimented and you showed up. And then we see it as your behavior. So chances are we will hear things like, wow, that person is so good. Their thinking is so relevant. That when you hear things like that, it means that you are doing things where you are applying some of this learning that we've given you. All right, so team, that's where I want to leave this discussion. I know we're going to have a Q&A and I will be fielding some questions. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Davi. Thank you for those key insights. I want to pick up on something that stood out for me when you were talking about the top skills. I was looking at the top skill of resilience.
Yes.
And it led me to thinking resilience is when you're able to bounce back from stress, shockers, anything that happens in life, you cope with it and you bounce back. But recently I had a very interesting conversation with our MD, Dr. Sheikh, and he was telling me about another concept that goes even further than resilience. And he called it anti-fragility. And I said, what? Anti-fragility. Anyway, I Googled it and I looked it up. A book written by Nassim Taleb. And he says that anti-fragility that you find in a few individuals goes even beyond resilience. You've been affected by the stress, you've been affected by the shock, you've bounced back. But instead of going on with your life and coping as normal, you suddenly become even better. You become a giant and you go from strength to strength. And that led me to do a whole lot of reading on research on anti-fragility, trying to link to Linchpin by Seth Godin and the book range. And they all essentially talk to the same thing. The human spirit is very strong. We are able to survive multiple shocks and stresses, as we've seen in COVID-19. And yet we can still go on and be even better, which talks to your having a plan, Davi, listening, finding a mentor, and basically just getting on with it in this world.
Absolutely. I think, Inga, for me, the thing about anti-fragility is really about what this world of work has now done for us, okay? We cannot hold on to what we had in the past. We no longer can. We need to move forward. We need to let go of that what we were used to, and we need to be able to readapt. Now, one of the things that is currently happening in the world of work, and certainly as close to my organization, is something that we call robotics process automation. So I was employed, and I use this as an example, I was employed to be an administrator. And boy, oh boy, am I the super best administrator. I've been doing this job for the past 5 years. But what is happening with robotics process automation right in our world of work is that routine admin process is now moving into artificial intelligence. So how am I, with my now 30% capacity that I have, because that part of my job has been taken away, are going to show up in the world of work with something new, something that is relevant and something that is needed. And that's where the notion of reskilling comes in. Okay, something happened, a setback happened, and we could see that as the example, the setback of my work being taken away. But then I come up with something that is still of relevance and I show it up. I bring it into the workplace, okay? And that's how you ensure you have relevant skill sets. But I had the foresight to know that that was coming. And I ensured that I used something that was more sitting in the analytical side of me, and I brought it to the forefront.
Okay. So before we wrap up with some key insights and takeaways that we can give to our viewers, let's have a look at the Q&A. Can you see the Q&A?
Yes, we can. Do you want us to answer live? How do you want us to play this?
We can answer live. We might not be able to get to all of the questions, but I think, Davi, maybe you could take Delisha Oliver asked, do you think that some employees are exploited in their commitment if they go the extra mile?
This is where your assertive skills come in, right? So you've got to also know when you're being taken advantage of, because we know that when you keep volunteering and you keep showing up, that people will give you more, okay? You need to know what you can and you cannot do, and you must be able to speak your mind in a respectful and responsible way. So I think also you putting the brakes in a very diplomatic, polite way is going to because people recognize that as a good trait, a good quality. The person is speaking up, and we want people who will speak their minds, but doing it with respect and taking the responsibility that goes with it as well.
Okay, thank you. Fiwi Ndabini asks, are the qualifications we study right now going to be needed in future as we move more and more into 4IR? Would you like to take that one, Cindy?
Very much. You know, these, as Davi was saying, there's so much change that's going to happen. And I think, you know, it reminds me of that quote by Alvin Toffler in Future Shock. And he said the leaders of the future are going to be those that can unlearn, learn, and relearn. And I think it's about having a new attitude to studying and personal development and growth. So it's not like I come out of school, I go to varsity, I do my 3 or 4 years, and then I stop. I think it has to be, you know, sort of, as Davi was saying, predicting what's going to happen and refining our knowledge and our skills and our studies and our relevance, you know. And I think something that I've realized through this year, with all the change you've had in workplaces and speaking to thousands of people, you know, it's amazing how many people have got this mindset of, gosh, the company's changing and they're shifting the goalposts. And I think that anti-fragility is amazing. We've got to actually be excited when the company is shifting the goalposts, because it means they're responding to the massive change out there. Other things we're not allowed to say anymore. The one is, that's not my job. I think we all realized in lockdown and with the economy that if we have a job, it's our job. So to just kind of link in with the previous answer, you know, if you are giving a day of work to a company and you've got time and they ask you to do something that's slightly different, you know, just, I think to me, it's not about exploitation. It's just about willing to be used for that purpose, because that's what's needed by the company at the moment. And then another thing is, a lot of people are saying this, and I can't believe we say it, but when things go back to normal. And I think, you know, what we're realizing is we are actually living in the slowest time we're ever going to live in again. So we've got to say, well, gosh, how have I changed this year? You know, what have I done to learn and to grow and to develop? And even with the technology, you know, there's so much technology we need to get our hands on. And as Davi was saying, becoming proficient with it, not just, you know, so many people you can see straight away. We were talking earlier about interviews. They'll go for an interview online and they are so nervous. The first 30 seconds they're being judged. And in that 30 seconds, they don't know where to look. They don't know how to unmute. There's noise in the background and they've lost it. So I think it's about owning the fact that everything is changing, embracing it as well. And understanding that, you know, we can't ever say I've arrived. Even if I get my MBA and I graduate and I'm so excited, that's part of a lifelong journey of learning, of giving, and of adding more value. And I think the future belongs to the givers. The future belongs to the people who are passionate about their work and who are putting up their hands.
Thank you, Cindy. We'll take one last question. I see there's a question specifically for you at Davi from Kim Morkel.
What is the question?
In as much as individuals need to take ownership and responsibility of lifelong learning, I wonder if organizations are truly ready to support these individual journeys through changing their learning strategies and truly understanding how people learn and want to learn. Do you think corporate South Africa is ready to support individuals and to be agile in their response?
So Kim, that is such a profound question, and one that is very, very close to my heart, because you would have seen that I'm also responsible for learning in my group. And so I will agree with you. I don't think that corporates are agile enough, but I will say the following, that the thinking has arrived in my organization, okay? And we are certainly not there, but I can tell you in 3 to 5 years' time, we would have shifted this world of work. The world of learning and lifelong learning is going to become something that every single person within the organization will need to embrace, okay? So I'm agreeing with you. I don't believe that corporate SA necessarily does enough, but I think as somebody that is corporate SA and represents the function in an organization, I can say to you that we are doing everything that is possible in order to make that shift.
Thank you, Davi. We've come to the end of our Q&A. Any questions that we can't answer now, we will answer and send out to everyone that has registered for this webinar. So ladies, any key takeaways that you want to give? Your top 3, Cindy.
For me, I think something that we haven't mentioned too much is networking. To develop and grow intentionally a network of people that can help you grow in your career. People that if you phone them to say, I'm looking for a job, or I've started a business, or can I have lunch with you and sit at the feet of greatness? There's a saying, your network equals your net worth. So my encouragement to anybody, regardless of whether they're in a corporate or in a small company or want to grow a business, is to have a lot of people who know you, respect you, and trust you. And that falls in line with relationship management, that you're always putting your best foot forward. The next point, I think, is that authenticity. So what is your uniqueness? What makes you you that makes nobody else like you? So it could be you quirky. It could be that you've got this amazing sense of humor. You've got ridiculous energy. You're the kindest person you know. But I think working on, each one of us is specifically made for certain things, and embracing that and harnessing that, because you can work your whole life on trying to reduce your weaknesses, but it's really your key strengths that are going to take you to be exceptional. So being focused on your authenticity, your originality, and your uniqueness. And then I think the other thing is, if I could encourage you on habits, wherever you are in your career, we are creatures of habit. And, a lot of the top books at the moment are on, it's Own the Day, Make Your Bed. These are things about habits. And if we can get into a habit of always doing the right thing, a habit of always excelling every day, a habit of just providing superior service, a habit of just saying, I'm going to be a person of excellence and integrity and positivity. Because the minute you start getting that into your DNA, then it's going to be how you show up at school, at varsity, at work, through your postgrad studies, through every other element of your life. So there's a saying, your day is your life in miniature. So master each day, and before you know it, you're going to have an awesome life. I think I'll leave it at there.
Thank you. Davi, any key takeaways from you?
Absolutely. I think the big one is back to what I was talking about. It's really about having this growth mindset. I've given you the tool, the technique of 3, the power of yet, the rule of 3, and really giving you a sense of some of the stuff that you need to be doing practically. I've also made sense of Cole's learning style around the 4 learning stages. So I think that's the other big one. And I think this new thing about adaptive learning, adaptive mindsets. The notion of having this job, this is my job title, has to shift, and it has to move to one where I have relevance and I can show up my relevance, and I can almost walk into the next role that opens up in the organization. I think just having this open way of how we approach work and how we're going to actually embrace the world of work and shift with that thinking is really going to be the big differentiator for me. And I've always said to people, you may have a great idea, okay? And you've probably heard this. If you want to learn a new idea, read an old book, okay? So let me leave you with something that's from an old book. There's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Some of you have heard of it, right? It's a book written by a gentleman called Dale Carnegie. Now, if you read the book is 67 years old, guys. I've got the hard copy book. I bought at a secondhand flea market shop, okay? So the book actually tells you of how Dale Carnegie turned something that he was looking for into the Dale Carnegie course, okay? So real practical stuff that you can learn. And I'd really say to you, you must hunger, thirst, want, desire, have those words top of mind, and it will manifest. It will be drawn to you. You'll be that magnet to attract it towards you.
Thank you, Davi. From my side, I'm passionate about growing people, especially young people in their professions, and guiding them and mentoring them. So Regent aims to build a cohesive network of alumni, students, employees, employers, suppliers of Regent, through engagements and eventing. So I'm inviting you, and it's in the chat, connect.regent.ac.za. It's a platform called Graduate where communities of people connect and assist each other. We mentor, we review CVs, we open doors, we find job opportunities, and it's a brilliant network to join. So I'm inviting you all to join this network. I will respond to as much people as I can respond to for mentorship and for CV reviewing. But please, you're all welcome to join this. And please come and visit our eyelid labs and look at the course offering that we have. These are standalone courses where you can upskill on soft skills and hard and technical skills. So keep a lookout for free webinars and seminars that will be coming your way soon. So thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Davi. This was a really enjoyable talk, very topical, very relevant for today. I've also learned something, some skills I can take away that I've learned from the two of you. So thank you once again.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be part of it.
Thank you. Really awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, viewers.